Let's bring him in now. I'm guessing from St. Augustine, Florida. Ron Duguay, the peerless, the ageless, the iconic Ron Duguay is in the Sunshine State. How you doing, Dukes? Welcome back.
Yeah, hi. Always good to talk with you, talk hockey. I don't want to change things up, but as you know, where I live, it's TPC. It's the Players' Championship. It's actually right across the street from where I live. And so it's a week of talking golf, not so much hockey. But yeah, there's a level of excitement in my part of town where we see once a year. So it's busy and it's fun. So it makes everyone in a good mood.
I don't know are you a golfer? I got friends that are going up there. They're covering it in the media, and the golf people are saying this is the kickoff to the season. Is that a thing for golfers?
Yeah, very much so. Am I a golfer? Yes, like a lot of hockey players, because we get asked to do a lot of events, a lot of charity events, and you need to know how to play golf. You don't want to embarrass yourself because the level of expectation as hockey players, you got to be a decent golfer. So I've learned how to play. I don't play as often as I play tennis because I still play hockey. I need to play tennis to keep my legs strong.
We got to get you into pickleball. That's a story for another time, but we'll talk about that off air. 860 NHL games, by the way, for Ron Duguay, the pride of Sudbury, Ontario. Before we go any further, you've got thoughts on Matt Rempe. You got a lot of them. I just think the world needs to hear them. Fire away, Dukes.
Yes, no, I know. There's a level of excitement about this kid, as I do. I think it's elevated because it's been so missed in the NHL. We haven't had this type of player, a young player that comes in, which we haven't seen many of these young type players, even Canadians, guys that have some size, who have some grit, has some fight into him, and plays the game the way it used to be played, like 30, 40, 50 years ago. All of a sudden he comes in and he realized, if I'm going to make this team, this is how I'm going to play. I'm going to utilize my size, and I'm going to be noticeable on the ice. That was the first thing I understood when I played, when I got to the Garden. I'm going to use my skill set, but I want to be recognizable. What do? You get involved. You hit guys. You get hit. And occasionally you go to get in a fight. We haven't seen that. It's so refreshing. And I think that because a lot of the teams and coaches kind of follow suit to see what the trend is, I think we're going to start seeing more of these guys come in. The problem is, where are they? We can't find them anymore.
Is he the Tommy DeVito of hockey, 15 minutes of fame, flash in the pan? That's what happened with the Giants at quarterback. How do you see this playing out for Matt Rempe? Because you can't lead with your face. I worry about him a little bit, man. He hasn't even played a dozen games.
Yeah, I know. Well, I made a mention the other day that the last time I've seen a player like this that's been part of the Ranger organization that creates such excitement with his physical play, it was Nick Fotiu. So I play with Nicky. And every time Nicky would step on the ice, you would hear the fans, they'd chant his name. And with Nicky, he had no fear in him. And he'd run into guys and occasionally get into fights. So when you look at this player and his style of game, I'm watching him carefully to see how he plays without the puck. Really important. And how he pursues the puck, how he thinks the game. And I think he has enough skill. When you watch him go into corners, he's taking a body. Of course, he's having to learn how to make the big hits because he's going big. He's going big. You need to learn how to make the big hits without taking a penalty. Other than that, you'll watch him. He goes directly in front of the net. His net presence is really good. He understands that big body. What do you want to do? You want to take the goalie's eyes away. And if that creates goals scored while on the ice, it works. So we've seen him do that a couple times. He can even win faceoffs for you. But more than anything else, this is what he does. He brings an energy to the team, like a team like the Rangers. When you looked at their weakness, a lot of people would say, well, they're a nice team to play against, right? They're a skilled team. They're not a hard team to play against. So I think he provides a physical energy that was needed in the dressing room that you're going to see other players follow suit. He plays with energy. He has a smile on his face. But he's got a grit to him that I really appreciate and enjoy. Listen, when Messier appreciates him, I listen to Messier talk about him. He says, no, I like how he plays the game. He plays the whole ice surface. He knows how to go to the net. He's taken the body. He thinks it through. I think he's the real deal. And the thing that the fact that he's only 21, he's going to get even bigger, stronger, and smarter.
You had me at Nick Fatio, by the way. Great analysis on Rempe, but Tim Hunter said the hardest he'd ever been punched. You were probably there, Dukes, was in MSG by Nick Fatio, punched him right in the forehead, cracked his helmet in two at MSG. He said, thank God it was on the road. It was so embarrassing as a Flame. And you talk about what Rempe's doing to stay in the NHL. Billy Lindsay here has become a really close friend of mine, and he said when he came up with the Quebec Nordiques, he looked around, he's like, oh boy, Joe Sakic, Owen Nolan, what do I got to do to stay? So he figured out a way to stay, because he was a scorer in junior. As I see were you. 20 goals in Sudbury, 26, 42, 43, 100-point guy. When did you go, this is what I got to do to stay in the NHL?
Well, there's a couple things. We're all built differently physically, and our minds we think differently. We're all wired differently. A part of me, I love playing the game. There's the love of playing the game because of the beauty of the game and the physical part of the game. But I also like to think that I was an entertainer on the ice. And so I felt like there's things that you can do to get a response from the fans. And what is that? Well, you're playing fast. Take the body, get physical, get involved, play a little bit angry. And so I understood that early on that, and the other thing is, what do you do to please your coach, right? What is it you think you can do to please your coach? Well, it's just a work ethic all the time, going hard every single shift. And so those are the things that you have to think about when you step on the ice. And then you have teammates. But the whole part of being a hockey player in the National Hockey League, you got to embrace it. You got to love it. You got to love playing at home for your fans, and you got to love being hated going on the road, which I was hated. You go to Philly and Boston, they did not like me. So you got to really like doing what you're doing and just have fun with it.
It's hilarious that 40 years later, I have Islanders fans write me when you're on the air here and say, well, he's a decent guy. We used to hate him. Actually, we used to say these horrible things about Duguay 40 years later. So it's nice to have you on and so they can see what the real Ron Duguay is all about. Our viewers would like you to do a Stanley Cup final prediction, if you don't mind, Ron. We won't hold you to it. Who are you thinking right now?
I put my list together. After the trade deadline, I put my list together. On the teams, I put them in an order as top 8. Best with what I can see. And the top 2, I think they might be obvious or maybe not because they still have to make the playoffs. I have Vegas after the trade deadline at number 1 with the Panthers number 2. 1 or 2 interchangeable. And after that, you got Boston, Colorado. Now, these are all teams that have added players. So the top 4, Vegas, Panthers, Boston, Colorado. And then Carolina, who I think are going to be tough to beat. Rod Brind'Amour is a really good coach. Then you got Carolina. Then I have Vancouver, Rangers, and Edmonton. So that's kind of the teams that I have in the top 8. When you look at the top 8, injuries play a big part. So if they're all on an even playing field, I think the order is pretty accurate. But I do believe, as a Ranger fan, that with the Rangers, they didn't improve a whole lot at the trade deadline. They were cautious, and the right deal wasn't there. And so, but you watch them play, and they have the goaltending, they have the coaching, they have enough players that can score. So they could be a team that go deep in the playoffs. So, but it's got to be Vegas and the Panthers.
A rematch would be great. I would love a nice, long playoff run of hockey to watch live here. Dukes, thanks for this. Enjoy the golf, my friend. Hopefully we can do it again soon.
All right. Later. Bye.
Rangers great Ron Duguay checking in from St. Augustine, Florida.